Hello, welcome to the Brain Scrub, an improvised approach to mental health. My name is Glenn Sollers. I'm your host, and thanks for tuning in to an episode where I'm going to talk about control and why we like to control and what are the consequences on ourselves, on others. Years ago, my girlfriend at the time and my brother and his girlfriend went to a wintry part of Canada. And no, folks, we don't always have winter up here. We do not live in igloos. However, at this point in time, there could have been igloos outside. And we decided to rent 2 snowmobiles and go snowmobiling. I started off riding. My girlfriend was behind me, hanging on, and we were having tons of fun. At least I was, because I like to be in control. I like to be making sure that I drive the vehicle or whatever and go from point A to point B. And I love having that command control in doing so, because then I feel safe, because I'm not putting my life in the hands of other people. I then switched, and my girlfriend was riding the snowmobile, and I was hanging on to her for dear life. I felt out of control. I was scared. I was worried. I was thinking, are we going to get into an accident? And what I was essentially saying was, I don't trust you. I don't feel you can do this. I had to relinquish my power. I had to believe in the power of my girlfriend. Eye-opening experience for me, but I really didn't get it at that point in time. But the eye-opening experience for me was, I hate being on the back of a vehicle where somebody else is driving it. I'm a motorcycle rider. I've never been a passenger on a motorbike. I can't imagine what it's like. However, my dear wife will go on the back of the motorbike, and it shows to me that she's okay with me controlling things at times. She trusts me in doing my job, in taking care of her. And if I consider controlling behavior, it is, again, essentially, we're sending a message to others out there that I need to take care of this, because then I'll be safe. And this is the key thing. And I think for those of us who worry a lot about different things in life, or who have had to worry about a lot of different things in life, we start adapting to that and realizing, well, if I start controlling things, because there's so many things out of our control, but if I can control as much as possible, it means that I'll be okay. In my family, they were out of control. So what I had to do was step up to the plate and say, okay, I need to be the leader here, and therefore I need to control, and I will take care of everything. I will make sure everybody's getting along. I will use my tactics to inspire you, to motivate you. And it worked sort of back then, and it works sort of now. But for those of us who are still in this element of needing to control, it does have a negative impact in some cases on people that we might be married to, people in our team environment, family members, because we become the go-to person, and we feel sometimes as the go-to person. And then we might question other people. We might question their motives. And especially in my life, if there is something I cannot control, it eats away at me. And I talked about this in a previous episode around suffering. So if I don't know what's going on, or if I have little to no control over something, I want to fix things. And controlling people generally want to fix things Because when things are fixed, life is a lot easier. And again, we can eliminate those worries. Something's going on here. I better fix it. Like last week, our kitchen faucet was dripping. And I was frustrated because I like everything to work around me. And then this is not working. And so I instantly went online. I was Googling, what should I do? Here's the faucet. What do I need to do to repair it? And I was almost obsessed with it. And I couldn't find the right part. And then I went to Home Depot, and because I did that shortly afterwards, I said, I have to fix this. Even though it was a slow drip, and I could have put a bucket under there and allowed it to drip slowly and given it some time and actually done more research. No, I did not do that. I went to Home Depot thinking that they would be able to help me out, which they couldn't do at all. And that got me even more frustrated. So then I started saying, well, I can't even trust the Home Depot to take care of me. And I have to do it all myself. So then I went back home. I YouTubed things. I looked things up. And I realized I needed a cartridge, but I didn't know what the part number was in terms of replacing that. And then I was going to Amazon. I was overwhelming myself. And at the same time, I became very distracted in terms of what was going on in my current reality, and made this my priority. A kitchen faucet that's dripping. How ridiculous is that? Eventually I said, you know what, I'm just going to get a new faucet. And I spoke to my wife. I said, what kind of faucets do you like? And she said, well, I like this style and this style and this style. And I said, well, I'm going to go back to Home Depot and maybe Lowe's, and then I'm going to find out if I can find a faucet like that and just replace it. Because the other problem was, in my midst of trying to control things and taking things apart on the faucet, I ended up losing a part of the faucet. And it must have gone down the drain. But when I'm out of control and trying to get into control, I do miss things at times. I miss details because I'm not necessarily thinking logically. It's more at a point of desperation. So I might say and do things that are not objective or not rational, or they might offend somebody else. So here I go. I have a faucet that is missing a part. So what I say is, you know what, we'll just get a new faucet. Versus thinking about, well, why don't I just get that small little part somewhere? We wanted to get a new faucet anyway because it's so 10 years old, and I think it's okay, but my wife wanted a different faucet. And so I went to Home Depot and I looked at a brand there, and I was expecting to pay, I don't know, $1,000 for a faucet because I wanted something that's high end. And then I saw something there that fit the description of what she wanted, but it was a lower level brand. And I said, you know what, let's just buy it anyway. And I installed it. Everything worked out. And then the next day we went to somebody's house for dinner, and they have the best faucet in the world. Like I had faucet envy. Oh my gosh, look at that faucet. It's so springy and you could do all these different things with it. And wow, it's so easy to use. I would rather have that faucet. When one controls things, we can make snap judgments. We can cause stress on other people through our own anxieties and trying to control those anxieties by fixing things. And we actually, at times, put ourselves further behind than ahead. And this is just an example of that. I am getting over my control issues. In fact, I think I shared with you, if you listen to one of my previous podcasts around my son and what's going on there and his podcast, today I have to be very diligent in not listening to his podcast because he releases the podcast every other Friday. And this morning I would have normally gone and looked at his podcast channel and listened to it, but I made a commitment to not listen to it anymore because it's just causing me more suffering. Hard thing to do, but I did it. And for those control freaks out there, it's important to really evaluate, well, where am I at right now? Am I controlling or not controlling? And knowing that we control, again, for a reason. The reason is if I control, and this, I'm just speaking on my behalf, I'm not an expert at this, is to feel like everything's okay. And it's not my job to make sure everything's okay, but I take it on. So for those of you who live with somebody who likes to control, I'm sorry. And sometimes people will never get that they like to control things until they start looking within themselves and doing some self-awareness training to understand the impact it's having. And in the cases that I know about with people in my life, the fact that we can't fix something or we have no control over it can actually lead to more suffering. Because I have grown accustomed to me being the fixer. I can't fix this. It really eats away at my securities. It eats away at my confidence. It eats away at my ego. And for people like me, if that happens, I try harder and harder to fix things and control things, which actually, as you just heard in this Faucet example, makes things worse. Or you come up with a solution that doesn't really work. Or you question people in your life. You don't trust them. Or maybe you're just so overwhelming in respect to your control that somebody else in your life is fearful of that, and they do things maybe behind your back. Like for me, a big thing was I like to control finances. I grew up with a father that would count his money every night. Like I would see him in his kitchen. He had these 2 drawers which were filled with receipts, money. It was loaded with stuff. And he would stand in this corner, beer on one side, calculator on the other side, counting his money. He taught me, Glenn, pay off your mortgage, pay off your mortgage. I got a lot of value out of that. And he was very frugal, as am I. And he liked to control the money. He wanted to make sure, I guess, that we all had enough money to survive because he was the income earner in the house and he had to be responsible for it all. Now, on the other end, my mom felt like she didn't have enough money for us at times. So we ended up going to clothing stores like back in those days, Kmart. Where the clothes were just not good. She would cut she would cut our hair. And I remember sitting there in my underwear. My mom's cutting my hair and it drove me nuts because I would start getting hair in all those crevices in my body. It would be super itchy and I'd be sitting there. But the frugality of my father really had a consequence on the rest of us because we had to watch how we spent our money. Like my mom had to sneak around doing things and buying things without my dad ever knowing. Interesting enough, my wife was doing the same thing. She wasn't telling me what she was buying. And as a result, I became angry. I became resentful. How dare you do this? It's no wonder our visa bills are high. But she had to tiptoe around me. So my control created a situation where others do things to avoid having me involved in things because you know what? They want a chance to ride the snowmobile too. They want a chance to be the one that's in control. But if you live with somebody who's in control and has to have things done a certain way, it is very hard and it can eat away at who you are as an individual. It can eat away at your individuality. It can eat away at the power that you really hold. Especially in a family dynamic, this can really play out in negative ways. And then imagine your children seeing this power dynamic. I never saw my mom have the power. It was just my dad who had the power. And it impacted me in a negative way. And of course, it was great in some ways. Being in control allowed me to do different things and allowed me to manage my mortgage effectively and manage my debt. But now I hate being in debt. I don't like owing any money to anybody, because what I'm essentially doing is I'm saying, you have control now. And I don't want to relinquish control. So there are some strategies to utilize in order to let go of things. And the first thing one should be doing is to ask themselves, why do I control? What's at risk if I let go? If I let go of control, things may not get done. Things may be broken. Things may not go my way. And that's okay. Beyond that, though, controlling is, in my opinion, a habit that started at an early age. And to understand the reason why I control, you've heard my reasons why I control, had to be primarily because that's how I was safe. I couldn't rely, or I didn't trust my parents to take care of me. I was very afraid. If I control, I can reduce my fear. However, if I control, I build the fear in others. So there's a consequence, right? I'm controlling to reduce my fear, but my control actually increases other people's fear. And then we don't have a dialogue because we're both like trying to control the situation or avoid something. So understanding the reason why we control, I think, is a big part of this. And then to realize my life is different now. Back then, I had to step into a power position. I had to role model that. I had to be that. And now at my age, I don't have to be that. I don't have to wear my superhero cape and fly in and save the day and make sure everything's paid off and to make sure that the lawn is taken care of and to do this and do that, which means that I also have to let go of perfectionism. That things don't need to be perfect. What is good enough? I'm breaking old habits that I've relied on for years. I'm letting go of things. My wife does baking on the side, and sometimes she's in the kitchen making an incredible mess. That's what I see. For her, it's just doing her work. But the way my interpretation is, wow, you're really messing up the kitchen, and I have no room to do anything. And I don't like to see mess around. And I used to suffer that all the time. And I finally said, I'm just going to let it go. Now, I do at times don't let it go. But if I don't let it go, then I suffer. If I do let it go, you know what? I suffer a tiny bit and I can just go to a different room. I don't have to be there. And sometimes when we see something that really bothers us, we keep on focusing on that thing that bothers us versus what else can I focus in on in those moments? So for you control freaks out there, what can you stop controlling? And make a list of what are those things that I try to control in my life. And chances are you might need 2 sheets of paper. Now make that list and then consider, okay, so for each one on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it that I control it? 10, wow, this is really important. I need to have control over this. Or 1, you know what? I can let things go. It's not that important. You can even think about, well, maybe other people can do it. And then go through that list and start letting go of things slowly. A big thing for me to let go of was letting go of trying to contact my son. Hard. Very, very hard. And when I made that decision, when I actually stated my intention that I am going to try and contact him when he's over 25, I then gave that power. And what I mean by gave that power is I spoke it. By speaking it, I made it come true. And also then people can hold me accountable. Since I said that, like every morning when I go for a walk, my son is bound to pop into my head. And when I shared that with my friends that this is what I'm going to do, I'm actually surprised at how little I think about him now, especially during those walks. Like the other day, I didn't even think about him. Now, it doesn't mean I don't love him. It just means that I'm putting my attention on things I can control, things that are important in my life. So I set the intention, and now it's become easier to let go of that. And there's other things that I need to let go of as well. The big problem with control is somebody has to be willing to see it. Somebody has to be willing to stop and say, something is not working. What I'm doing right now is having a negative impact. And I believe it does take a certain level of willingness to be introspective, to understand what might be going on, to care enough to do so. However, there are some personality disorders that will not want to do this likely. Like if I think about narcissism, a narcissist is not about to say, I really want to learn about myself. I want to really understand what I can do differently because I know my behaviors, they're not really working for everybody. It's always about me and I am very insecure and I don't want to really look at that. That's a very deep and dark place for me. Plus, I'm not even thinking about that really because I'm perfect and everybody else is not and they need to take care of themselves. I can never be blamed for everything. Now, I'm not a narcissist. And by the way, we all have a certain level of narcissism in us. However, some of us are very extreme, and those extreme narcissists do not want to be wrong because they have learned, likely, that I need to be right. I'm going to show you how great I am. And it can stem from high insecurities as a child. They're not likely going to say, I need therapy. I need to work on something. I want to fix this because you know what? It is my fault. I'm responsible for this. But that can be a deep and dark place to go as well. Some of us suppress our traumas. We don't acknowledge our traumas. We don't want to go there because we don't want to rehash old memories. But the problem is if you don't step into that and deal with your trauma, you're going to live with it and find escape mechanisms, escaping what it is that might have made you who you are and why you like to control things. And some escape mechanisms could be alcohol, drug abuse. It could be getting things perfect all the time. It could be escaping, not wanting to be around people. It could be depressive thoughts. It could be doing things constantly because you don't want to stop and be, because being might feel uncomfortable. Being with yourself. Being in a space of not doing. Because sometimes doing takes our mind off other things. And that's great sometimes. Sometimes we overthink things. But if you struggle actually just stopping and just being with you, what is that saying about you? Yeah, that's so funny that I just said that because it's so true. Like, why can't I just be with me in my space and enjoy me? Not always do. Because the doing stops the being, and the being actually produces a higher level of happiness and contentment and self-awareness and just a chance to be with our wonderful selves. However, for us control freaks, if we're not doing, we're not controlling. Therefore, I got to do it. I got to keep busy. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. I have time to do what is important, to keep our heads up, to manage this team in a corporate environment. It's up to me. And wow, that is so validating to know that, wow, I did it. I'm keeping everything together. It's my control. Control freaks, and I'm just going to use the word freaks, and please don't take that the wrong way. I know I have to be very careful with my language, and I appreciate that. In this case, I'm just using a term that's been used for a long time. Control freaks generally don't know that they're controlling, but they are. And they're leaving a bunch of powerless people behind who are afraid to let them know that they're a control freak. And I hear this so often in the corporate world. It leads to micromanagement. It leads to not letting go of things. It leads to teams that are dysfunctional. It leads to teams that can't trust one another because they don't trust the leader, because the leader doesn't trust them. Control erodes trust. Folks, think about those people in your life that you control. Think about you and your control. Let go of stuff. Don't do it all at once. But start letting go of little things, and eventually life will be a lot easier, which means I also have to live in the world of wonder and not live in a world of worry. Everything is going to be okay. It's a messy kitchen. It's going to be okay. There's weeds in the garden that need to be pulled out. It's going to be okay. I need to stop judging my lack of inaction on things, judging what other people might perceive me as, judging other people for not doing what I think is right, trusting other people to do their work, trusting other people that they have best intentions in mind. Then I can live a freer life, and it allows other people to feel freer around me. Thanks for listening.